This week I'm making a float frame for my pretty hen piece, so I thought I would just show you how I made it. I am not a pro woodworker, I really only do it out of necessity, but I thought maybe there would be some artists out there who are also not just natural woodworkers who would like to see a video of this process. So I have a 1x2 Pine Select board. The actual measurements of the board are 3/4 inch by 1.5, which is perfect for my 1/2 inch deep piece that's on the cradled wood panel. I'm actually cutting 13-inch sections here for this L that I'm going to be building for the frame. So I'll need 8 total 13-inch sections. So I'm just cutting the straight cuts here. This is a brand new blade for me, so I'm being very, very cautious. I have on eye protection, of course. I'm just measuring carefully and then cutting slowly. Once the blade goes all the way through the wood, I'm making sure to leave the saw blade down until the saw blade completely stops spinning. That prevents any kickback of that extra piece that's sitting there. And now I'm going to use my belt sander. I use this sander all of the time. It's one of my favorite things in my shop other than my laser. But I'm just going to take time to make sure that I really sand all of these pieces. Since this will be a finished frame, I really want these to be nicely sanded and finished. This piece has an actual sticker on it, so I'm just going to make sure to really sand that down so there's no adhesive left that might show up on my finished frame. I'll go ahead and put my measurements in the description here for you so that you can see how I figured how long I was going to cut these. I wanted to give myself plenty of room that I would be able to cut the miters. Here I'm just showing you how this frame is going to go together. So the little 4x6 is just an example of how the art will sit on that L. Basically what I'm looking for is for the outside of the frame to not show any junction between the two pieces. And I'm using the Titebond. Just putting a nice bead. It's important not to have so much that it really gets everywhere, but enough that you have a really good glue down of this piece. And I think of the whole process, this is where I really learned the most. I wasn't exactly sure how I wanted to clamp this, and I was honestly really, really surprised at how quickly the Titebond set up. So what I learned is that it's really best to go ahead and sort of hand hold the pieces lined up until you get an initial glue, an initial bond, and then clamp them. When I tried to clamp them too early, the clamps really just pulled those boards out of alignment, and I just didn't like the end result. I didn't like what I ended up with. So just hand hold it. It really just takes a couple of minutes using a paper towel just to make sure I don't have any extra glue beading up on the inside. And then once you have enough of a seal, then you can go ahead and clamp. I just have some small clamps. I used a couple of little rags from my workshop to try to protect the wood, just in case the clamp would make any marks or harm the wood in any way. Initially, as I built this frame, I thought that I was going to want about a 1/4 inch float around the outside of my piece. Once I made the initial cuts, I realized that really an eighth of an inch float around this 10 by 10 inch piece was plenty. So the nice thing was I had plenty of room to cut it down a little bit. If you're not sure on your piece, err on the side of making your float a little bit bigger, and then you'll be able to cut it down as you start to place it and see how your art fits inside. These really do set up really, really fast. Within about, I would say, an hour, I was ready to start cutting the miters. Um, it actually kind of was a worry about how quickly it set up because I knew I was going to be gluing the the four corners. So now I have my saw set up at the 45-degree angle. And again, like I mentioned before, I'm sure that I have on eye protection. I never skip that. Going very, very slow. Now I'm cutting through both sides of that L, so the vertical side and the side that's laying down flat against my my saw bed there. And now for this opposite miter, I've turned the saw so that the 45-degree angle goes the other direction. And you'll notice that I have my left hand now on the trigger of the saw and my right hand holding the board up against the fence and down against the base. So you don't want to, even though I'm right-handed, you don't want to cross your hands. Just go ahead and use your left hand on the saw, going very slowly. And again, be sure that you keep that blade down until the blade stops. So I have my clamp, my band clamp out. This is my very, very first time using this, and it was a little bit difficult. I know that it will be easier once I use it a little bit more. So I'm just going to add the Titebond to all four corners. I have the two sides set up in the band clamp, just loosely ready. I'm putting the Titebond on those miter cuts, and then I'm just going to set it to the side. And I'm doing this because I know how quickly this sets up, so I don't want this glue to be making contact with the other part of the frame until I know I'm ready. And I was scared because at this point, of course, you've got a lot of work into building these pieces, and I just didn't want to mess it up. So my advice here and what I'll do the next time is have this band clamp just a little bit bigger than you think that you need it. It's easier to tighten it as you get the pieces set than fiddle with trying to get it in a too small setup. And you'll see in a minute that I'm gonna I'm gonna get really frustrated and throw my hands up. I feel the clock ticking. I know that those first pieces that I set in there are going to start to set up, and I just don't want it to glue in the wrong in the wrong spot. Actually, when I put the band clamp back down, I didn't have all of the legs of the clamp perfectly against. You'll see how they those corners set up against the edge of the frame, but it worked out. So for my particular clamp that I have, you actually turn the handle in order to tighten it. So I'm turning the handle, trying to adjust, trying to make sure that everything lines up really, really well. And now I feel like I can start breathing again. I can see that it's going to come together and it's all going to be okay. I really do think that this band clamp, hopefully I'm saying the right name, is the way to go if you're going to build this kind of frame. You really want to be able to see how all four corners are going to line up. So I'm just checking it with the square just to make sure it's reasonably square. And again, this sets up really quickly. It just takes a few minutes. Check the glue, use a paper towel to wipe up any excess just so you don't have anything still on your piece. I actually ended up using a combination of dark walnut stain with some black. The ebony stain really helped to darken the frame and get more of the color that I wanted. So using those two colors really was really nice. I don't have the back of it stained here, but just flipping it over so that you can see what the back of it looks like. I think you can probably see on that bottom left edge, I have a little bit of a sanded mark. I love that rough kind of weathered look. So that's a purposeful sanding on that edge. I really hope you enjoyed seeing how I built my float frame. If you have any helpful tips, please put them in the comments. I'd love to learn more about maybe easier ways to do it than what I did, but I'm really happy with how it turned out.